Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to, or welcome back to, the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thanks a lot for coming along on the journey of this show that we started over a year ago, and it is designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to host this show every week with Craig Brown. Craig is an industry veteran and the former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig, here we are again.
Hey, hi, Thom. It's fall time, almost. It was nice and pleasant today in the Midwest, and it reminds me of when we go back to the universities, because it's that time of year.
And some people actually get to go back to universities. And some people, it's like University of Phoenix, no matter where they are. Some people are online the whole way. So,
well, I'm looking forward to chatting with today's guest. I actually met them. It's been a year, and so much has changed. I can't even remember what we talked about a year ago. But we'll get into that in the interview here in a second.
Well, and today we are going to talk about sort of changes around, implementing changes around education and stuff. So I think we have actually a really fascinating conversation coming. Today we have two guests. We have with us Travis Fuerst, and he is an assistant professor of practice at Purdue. And he's also a former Army Ranger, which is kind of cool. Army Reservist, which is kind of cool, and a drill sergeant. So if we get out of line, he's going to put us back into line. Travis, how are you today?
Doing great. How are y'all?
Doing well. Can you give us just really quick a little bit about your background?
Yes. So I started my career here in the department where I'm at, computer graphics technology, and got a bachelor's in engineering graphics, essentially, and then a master's in product lifecycle management before it was fashionable. And then I worked for one of the software companies in product data management, and later went on to the Boeing company, educated the engineers on that through training department there for about 10 years, and spent some time in IT. And then I made my way back to the university to teach what I've learned.
Nice. And our other guest today is David Ewing. And David, he is the technical account manager at Aras. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Thom.
Hey, give us a little bit about your background. Where were you originally? How did you get to Aras, and what do you do today?
I actually grew up on the other side of the world, kind of along with Craig. I grew up in industry, got an engineering degree, and started out at General Electric, making big things that spin around, turbines that you hang off some wings, and so the engineering part was fun. That actually got me into automation, CAD automation, things like that. That turned into PLM, and moving to a role at BE Aerospace, where I grew a team and was involved a lot with folks like Craig through PLM World, and then Cummins, and then decided, hey, maybe it's time to go work for the software company. So now I'm on the other side of the fence. So it's nice to be able to put a perspective of the folks that actually have to live and breathe it every day.
Nice. And together with two other authors, Travis and David have authored a book called The Essentials of Product Data Management, Enabling the Digital Enterprise. And that book's actually in its second edition, and I think Craig's going to talk to them a little bit about that. So I'm looking forward to today's show. Craig, why don't you take it away?
Well, David, it's good to hear your voice. It only seems like yesterday, and when the weather changes, I always looked forward to going to Purdue in the fall to be on a PLM workshop that the department that Travis is from, his department chair runs this pretty good workshop. We have lots of us, right? We're from industry, we're from academia, and we're also from the tool vendors, the solution providers, like you guys at Aras. So I'm looking forward to meeting again. Unfortunately, in these times, it's this way. It's a podcast or that kind of thing. So, so much has changed since March. I don't even recall, frankly, the panel we were on. We typically were talking about small manufacturers and adoption, and maybe it was open PLM platforms. That was something on my mind back then. Sure. Do you remember? I'm just curious. was a year ago, my friend.
Well, it's been a long year too, and I've sat on a few of those panels, and we've talked about small manufacturing. We've talked about also like change management, organizational change. I recall seeing for that I think you were involved in. So a few different topics that are important to industry, important to academics as well. So a lot of good information.
Well, and sometimes when organizations don't change, you reminded me of one of them. It has to do because people are fearful, and fear comes from a couple things. It either comes from you just don't know, right, or you're in an environment where if you take a chance, the penalties are greater than the rewards, right? And so I find it interesting that you've partnered with some folks at Purdue to write a book. Before we get to the book, I'd like to understand what needs to improve in education. I mean, I've been pretty vocal with Dr. Hartman and others about what I think needs to change. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. What needs to change? Was this part of your catalyst for the book?
I'll take a first stab at that. From an industry perspective, and or the software, kind of the two roles that I've been in, and Travis has been in both as well. Having the young folks that come out of college, the young men and women that are coming forward, having them have an appreciation for what's going on. They know fluid mechanics, they know dynamics, they know those types of things, the typical engineering courses. A lot of times they get in, they get their desk and they get their workstation and they say, here's PDM or PLM, and they say, what the heck is that? Their experience has been shared folders or something like that. And, managing very large, system designs, automobiles, military type equipment, even our cell phones. It's a lot of data to manage, and having folks have a good understanding of what that means. Connecting information, people, processes, tools. That's an area that we think needs some improvement. And in my opinion, the team at Purdue and Dr. Hartman and the folks there, Jorge and Travis are really leading the charge on that, and there's certainly others, and so that's kind of how we all got together.
Hey, Travis, if I put it together, did you ever work on one of the PACE projects we sponsored at General Motors? That would have been roughly the time you would have been finishing school, I suspect.
No, that program I think was starting about the time I was finishing my master's. And
it was the same catalyst, Partnership for the Advancement of Collaborative Education. How do you get students aware of this broader condition or the broader ecosystem that David is referring to? And I guess from your vantage point, your past was about teaching, whether you were at an industry or coming back to the university, or even as a sergeant in the Army. So your passion's clearly educating and educating others. Why back at the university, and why a book?
Well, my experience actually after I left the university and went to, when I was actually at the Boeing company, cutting my teeth on 787 program, right, which was the all digital aircraft. Everything is going to be in PDM. And my role there was actually as a workplace coach. So I wasn't like an instructor sitting in a classroom, though we did training, we developed that stuff. Other people taught it. We authored it. Other people taught it. I was the coach. I was the guy they called when they had a problem. I don't understand the process. I don't understand that. I'd go to their desk and help them over the hump. And what I observed in my time, nobody cared about the PDM. Nobody cared about wanting to keep it in the system. They wanted to continue to download the model, keep it on their desktop for 6 months, model, put it back in the system. This is what they've been taught. It's the way they've operated for, however many years they've been in industry and in school. And I come back to the university, with the opportunity to do that, because I always wanted to come back and teach. I like teaching and enjoy it. But I see this as what we're teaching them. The kids, they're storing in team projects, they're storing stuff on Google Drive or OneDrive or wherever they can, but that's not where you store CAD data. So in my experience, I took over one of the CAD classes and I said, I need PDM in this class so that I can teach them how to model the way you're supposed to model from the get-go, so I don't have to unteach you the bad habits that you're being taught, from ground zero.
It's interesting you mentioned the different ways of sharing files. Mm-hmm. There's several of us. We've been having this ongoing debate. Some days it's heavier than others about, the real problem is computers, right? They got so cheap and so powerful on your desktop that everybody wanted to keep a copy of their design. the 777 and the aircraft before the 787, you were I believe this is true, you were drawing on 2D drawings, the way things were going to come together, and you always had a supervisor or a coordinator or a senior designer looking over your shoulder. Never was this notion that you were separate and you share a file and I'm not going to share it because I'm embarrassed by my work or whatever.
Right.
And so I think the making small files and sharing them is part of the problem. And I got into fluid dynamics. I'm an aerospace guy. I got into fluid dynamics because I was in a control theorist, right? And control theory is all about, at least in whether it's atmosphere, it's all about dealing with the airflows. And so learning fluid dynamics and control theory seemed natural to me, and the university I went at encouraged it. But yeah, I ignored structural dynamics and other things because there's only so much you can learn in 4 years, right? So, I think the cross discipline is sorely missing, and I think people broke their pieces of design into too small of pieces, right? And so are you sensing at the university there's more cross discipline sharing or educating, or is that still a challenge? And I'm putting you on the spot, I realize.
From my perspective, I would say it's still pretty siloed. Engineering does engineering, technology does technology.
And within engineering, you don't get mechanical and electrical working together, right?
But you don't get the tools. Like
that's
in our
true.
department, we have a PLM minor that you can take where we actually use the tools, simulation, because in the engineering curriculum, there's only one CAD course that's in the entire engineering curriculum. They take it, it's a 2-credit course. They learn, NX or whatever we're teaching at that time, modeling techniques, and that's it. Everything else, they either take it as a minor or they just go on through their engineering career at the university and they really never get it again. There may be a sprinkling of stuff.
So then David's experience is really good. The only way you can go work at a solution vendor or even a big OEM is after you've gotten varied assignments in different departments to show you that you really got to broaden. I mean, education is about getting you to think and solve problems for yourself, but you're missing all these other disciplines. I mean, I don't know, David, what you've heard what Travis said. Why aren't we addressing these gaps? Is it just that hard, or is it other issues?
I think it's, we talked a little bit about change earlier. I think there's a bit of that mixed in there, both in industry and academia, that, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But it is broke. But keep going.
And I think we all agree on the surface, but sometimes it's very hard to get that movement. And I think all of us in the world of PLM solution providing, I don't mean to speak for my peers at Siemens or others, but I think I can safely say that, we're all trying to find a better way to bring the disciplines together, to bring all those domains together, break down those silos. It's a little bit of the typical, spiel that you might hear, but that's really the big thing. The systems and, a systems engineer's work doesn't stop when you start doing CAD. It's pervasive. And those are things that I think for some reason, those walls are still there. We're probably all old enough to remember the over-the-wall engineering idea, right?
Yeah. Well, it seems to me too that the walls are partly there because the way we award business, so I'll remind people I used to be an OEM, right? Was based on the features in the tools, and the features were largely driven by what the authors, the creators of a design want, right? But in reality, 80-90% of your organization are not those designers. They're other people. They're test engineers, right, or service engineers. And so we tended to not worry so much about those other disciplines, even within our companies. I actually think we need to, part of why I like the Aras business model, frankly, we kind of got to teach people, no, wait a minute, there's all these other views, all these other contexts, if you will, and it's not about the author. Well, gosh darn, every time we would buy tools, we would say, well, if I don't get these 3 authoring features, I'm not going to buy your tool. I can remember discussions like that. So I think that's part of the problem too, is the way the money flows. We're not necessarily encouraging tools that make it easy to go cross-discipline. And then this organizational challenge, we've talked about Conway's Law a couple times with other folks, but from both of your roles, this is advice to anybody else listening. If a senior management's not willing to take a look at the organization, well, then you're going to end up with tools that follow the communication paths of the organization. Right? If you're not going to look at, no kidding, the designer should become a component simulation engineer. I realize those are, new skills. But as they get comfortable being a component simulation engineer, then they'll become a system simulation engineer. This idea you mentioned about system engineering passing it over the wall, system engineering should be engaged from day one till the time the product stop being used.
Absolutely.
So every day, take a look over the shoulder, just like that old supervisor would in the drawing room, and not only critique, but also say, I didn't realize that could work that way, and take that learning. So you guys authored a book, and you're saying it's enabling the digital enterprise, or digitization. Give me the top 3 reasons why. Maybe David, you can do the first one, then Travis, then David, and we'll see what else we got. So what's the top reason?
I think maybe picking up. I mean, we're talking about education, so we'll kind of leave that bit out, right? It's educating folks because we're trying to have the new talent pool. But maybe I'll start with one of those things is getting folks to realize that PDM is more than just CAD. It's more kind of to your point of the author versus the consumer of data. That I've got to have a strategy for how I store data in an organization because, like we said, it's more than CAD. It's more than systems. It's all of them. It's the sum of the parts. And how do I create that information, store it in such a way that all of those different folks in the different domains can access it in the way they need to? I think you made a very good point, is it's a different view of information, like a cube of data. Depending on your point of view, you'll consume it in a different manner. So we were trying to get that out there to start to lay the foundation for getting to the next part, which is, hopefully we'll get into the next book, which is more PLM. We're getting into the depths of the larger scale.
That's really important what you just said. We'll come back to that. Travis, what were your reasons for why we need a book? What's the enabling of digitization?
Well, one of the biggest things we saw was a gap. There's a gap. A lot of the content that's out there on PLM and PDM is very strategic and heady. It doesn't get down to the tactical level, where the user is and what it means and why I should do it and what for. A lot of the books that are authored are targeted at executives and CEOs and management. This text really takes it down to the user. Why am I doing this? Why does it benefit me? Kind of the with them. What's in it for me? And it really addresses those points and gives practical best practices and such.
Well, excellent. This is what you do need. You need people to be able to understand their role in using all of this technology. And so I'm beginning to get the picture. So we need the book to talk to those folks. They also need to know it's quite safe to fail and that they're going to learn new skills. I mean, most of us use a version of TurboTax. Hardly anybody uses raw forms. Maybe somebody does, but I don't. And my point is, a lot of engineering could become TurboTaxi-like, with the exception that we are still engineers. We solve problems. We're looking for the weaknesses of the design, right? Which is a little different than filling out a bunch of forms to pay money to somebody, right? So I think talking to the audience and being able, don't talk over their head. Let them understand. I think a lot of executives believe PLM is done, or at least PDM is done, and their shortcoming is they thought they already paid for it and they thought it should already be in there. So why do they still have half of their population not using it? That's a really good question. I'm sure it's partly what you mentioned, that people aren't comfortable, right?
And this is a way to help the adoption, right? You do these initiatives, these big PLM implementations, and any implementation, why does it fail? Because you don't get buy-in from the people that are supposed to do the work. So the point is, this would help, it helps get that buy-in, especially when in academia, we're helping, the students come out with the knowledge. They understand it. They can be advocates. Those that are in industry, they can learn and understand that it's not this scary thing that it's going to take their jobs or anything like this. It shows all the benefits.
Well, it will, to be fair to them, and I hope some of them are listening, it will change their jobs. Generally, it changes it for the better. It gets rid of the bureaucratic work and gets on to the thing we became engineers for in the first place.
To do what you want to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I think the part of what goes with that is, it helps the academia, the young engineers coming out of school to be prepared. But I think part of it, we're also thinking of those small and medium businesses, the large enterprises, the General Motors of the world, the Northrops of the world, the Boeings of the world. They tend to have the knowledge and they have the people in place, the specialists in PLM to help to kind of move the ball forward. But those thousands and thousands of small and medium sized businesses that have these same struggles and just kind of fumble their way through, we were hoping that this is a way that they can pick up the book as well and take that talented young engineer, maybe say, hey, as your side job, because everyone's still got a full-time job, go try and figure this out and to hopefully move those businesses forward as well.
Now, David, you mentioned this well, there's some sort of transition from PDM to PLM. So describe for us, in your words, PLM, and I'll be anxious to hear what the P is and what the L is.
Well, the textbook definition is product lifecycle management, right? Mm-hmm. But the key thing for folks to remember when we talk about PLM is the process first. It's something that I should be able to write down, in Visio or on a pen and paper, kind of draw my business processes out. That's what we're trying to enable, is those business processes in your PLM software. Yeah. Whatever software you buy or invent of your own, that's what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to, end of the day, I like to tell folks that, hey, PLM is a means to an end. Your company makes widgets. Mm-hmm. If I'm not helping you make widgets better, faster, and cheaper, you should kick me to the curb. Yeah. Because we would do the same thing of a guy, that's putting the roof on your house. If you're still leaking, you might want to find a new roofer, right?
Or even if you're leaking 5 years later and he gave you a 20-year guarantee.
Right? Right, exactly. So, I believe that it is, the academic definition of PLM is what it is, but it has a basis of PDM. There's a significant amount of data. The legacy view was typically, hey, my CAD, some access control, vaulting, and my BOM. The more modern view is, hey, I got to store requirements. I got to store systems engineering information and CAD. And oh gosh, extremely large simulation files.
Oh yeah, go further. How about field results, right?
Exactly.
I drove home yesterday. Where's that file at General Motors?
Right.
Somewhere.
When I was at BE and Travis's experiences, I'm sure, testing is really expensive. Well, if I have enough statistically significant test runs to go along with my simulation results, that's a lot of data, lots of terabytes, but now I can start to do statistical correlation. Right. Where are you going to store all that information? That's why you have to have the PDM underpinning of PLM to get you there. So kind of a hopefully not too long-winded of an answer, but it's definitely something we can talk a lot about.
So Travis, as you talk to students and even practitioners about life cycle, what do they think the life cycle is? When does it end and when does it begin?
Well, before they get to class, when it goes out the door, they think that's kind of it, right? But we're talking about students, they don't, but that's one of the things it's core to our curriculum. We start that within our department from the first class. We explain the life cycle.
Okay.
But yeah, they really don't understand that there's a maintenance, retirement to any product, because it's in any product. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be engineering. It's pharmaceuticals. It's chemicals. It's everything.
Well, and the more exactly. The more embedded computers we have in any product, right? Well, just like the cell phones we all carry around now, or iPhones, or we shouldn't even call them phones anymore because they really are an extension of the network that we happen to be plugged into. You're getting upgrades all the time. A lot of times it's for cyber reasons, but you're also getting upgrades for features, and some of those features you're actually willing to pay for. I'm cheap; I don't pay for them, but in fact, my point is it's really easy. So the life cycle now all of a sudden has engineering work going on well past the conventional manufacturing point. And I had a younger gentleman, just 30, early in his career, and he's like, well, should I design this part to make the factory better, or should I design this part to last 200,000 miles? Yes. And I said, well, the objective is the other one, right? It's the long duration. because we have plenty of evidence that if you have a long duration product, people will keep coming back. People longer, at least in the car business, the days are long gone where planned obsolescence gets you a new sale. You're going to lose that customer. They're going to go to the other guy who's got better durability, right? So it was interesting because he was having a challenge with the manufacturing people, right? They didn't want to change some fixture, probably because it was too late or whatever. And so I think people looking at life cycle and that will bring in customer, the paying customer, the one who's willing to buy the product, right? A lot more. So for sure, PLM. Any last words you guys want to leave us with about your books and how many copies we should buy, things like that?
Everybody should buy one.
Okay, I thought you might say that.
Well, hopefully we see some people that are interested and can give us some feedback that we can get the third issue, or we've talked about some ideas of some subscription or training or other things like that would be useful for folks in both students and industry members.
Travis, what kind of feedback are you hearing from students? Do they like it, or do they still have gaps we need to fill?
They like it. Like I say, we've used this book in a couple of our courses, engineering courses, some of as many as 700 students. And when I've been in those classes and taught, and they start to understand it, they're thankful that they're getting the information early, because many of them will take one of these undergraduate courses later in their semester or later in their career, and like, I haven't heard anything about this. Why am I just now getting this? But thankfully they are 100 level courses. So the folks that are going through the courses now are getting it. So, and it's relative, the students that I've had that have gone on into internships, when they experience PDM, it's not like, what is this? They're already well aware of it. So they're very thankful to get it in the classroom instruction.
And I know companies that have students that are comfortable with these terms, who are skilled in whether it's Aras Innovator or Team Center or the others that are out there. They really appreciate it, right? We don't have to send students off to school for 3 months to learn the way we do PLM, right? So, well, thank you both for taking the initiative to write a book. It's never easy when you're also a full-time employee for one of the companies. So thank you both on behalf of the students and on behalf of our industry. And with that, I'll pass it back to Thom.
Yeah, so before I let you guys go, I always like to take the discussion back to sort of some career advice. And so both of you worked in industry before. David, you went to the software, manufacturing side, and Travis, you went into the university. You both have a long, extensive time working for big manufacturing companies. What advice do you have for someone who now is maybe maybe not brand new, but in the early to mid stage of their career, who's wondering, where do I go from here? Whether that's up in the company or out to something different like both of you did. What kind of advice do you have, David?
Gosh, sometimes it's follow what you love. Sometimes it's time to make a change. I loved, jet engines when I was at GE. I got a kick out of making, helping folks make first class seats on aircraft. But end of the day, those folks, I found that I loved the process and the software. And so it says, hey, this is time to make a change. You're far enough along in your career. It's time to go, not so much reinvent, but it was kind of a parallel, nice path. So it wasn't a huge jump. You can certainly reinvent totally. So, that would sometimes just go for it. And I'm glad I did. I've learned a ton. Fortunate I started as a product manager, managing part of the Aras product. And then moved into, I've done some marketing, and now, the technical account manager is a fancy name for, the multiple hats that a sales guy wears. But so it's been good. But
a lot of people, I think, when they think of this idea of reinventing or pivoting or going into something where they're not already proven to be good, it can be scary. So what do you say when somebody says, I could go do that, but I don't know if I should? How do you give them the confidence to go?
I forget the manager that said it to me once in my career, that said, if you're not scared of the next job, it's not the right job. Nice. It's easy to take the easy road, and it's a personal choice for everybody, but it was a, nerve wracking moving across country from Indiana to north of Boston area, and, getting into software. So it was, very different environment, learned a lot. and been having a good time. And the fun thing is I still get to interface with a lot of the similar folks that I've known for years. So it's not like you just disappear.
And Travis, what about you? You made the decision to go into academia. What advice do you have for people who want to make some sort of a pivot?
Yeah, I would echo everything Dave said. One of the things that I always found myself doing, and I didn't realize I was doing it, I don't remember if somebody gave me this advice, but I did my best to work myself out of a job every job I was in. Make the job so to the point where it's like, I'm getting bored now because anybody can do this, go in and fix it up. And now it's time to move on and find the next big thing. And then work myself out of that job, because after 2 or 3 years, I would start to get bored. I'm like, okay, this is not even fun anymore because I've got it down to a science. It's a process. And somebody else, can take it on and make it better. I've done everything I can do to it. I need to give it up. Pride of ownership goes away and move on and let somebody else take it the next 10 yards. But I've always tried to work myself out of a job. I think I may have found one I can't work myself out of yet in the academic sector.
Well, it's interesting. You guys, you're talking about different sides of the exact same thing. Of course, it's always scary to try something new, but humans are naturally curious. We want to try stuff new. That's where we're at our best, right? Is when we're trying new stuff. And Travis, you made the point that if you're getting bored, you're no longer curious. If you're no longer curious, some might argue you're not alive, right? So it's really interesting.
Well,
thanks, Thom.
And that's good advice. That's good advice from both of you and stuff we've heard from so many of the people. We've done over 60 of these shows. So many of the people we've interviewed, they talk about the fact that you've got to challenge yourself. And so I think that is really important career advice. So thank you for that. Hey, and thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. Craig and I wouldn't do this show if it wasn't for the audience, so we appreciate you. Join us every single week right here where you're going to get more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out right now at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.